I just said to myself, I'm going zero carbs. And I lost 50 pounds within probably 6 months. I just didn't even think it was humanly possible for me to lose that much weight in that short of time. So what happened was,
Cecilia, how did you find the carnivore diet?
well, I found the carnivore diet actually through Michaela Peterson. I Googled allergic to everything. I was at that point. I had suffered some autoimmune disorders, and I just wanted to get rid of them without medication. So her TED talk came up, and I listened to her TED talk, and it really made an impact on me because I had been searching for a solution to, in particular, psoriasis, which was really bumming me out. Psoriasis is a horrible autoimmune disorder, and it was getting worse and worse. And let me just start back from the beginning because I've always had digestive issues. I started with a ruptured appendix when I was 21 years old, and we always ate well. I mean, I was born in 1962, and we had home cooked meals all the time. We didn't eat in between meals. But when my parents divorced when I was 16 years old in the 70s, and my father was the primary cook. So after my father left, we never had a home cooked meal. After that, it was McDonald's, pizza, Burger King, um, delicious, great food for the kids. But we all started, all my whole family. I had six kids in our family, and we all started ballooning up after that. That was also when high fructose corn syrup was introduced, when the pyramid, we came in right in a bad time in America when the pyramid put the grains at the top. And it was just, ridiculous. I think it had something like, three servings of bread, that's like six slices of bread a day or something ridiculous like that. But at any rate, I always had digestive problems. I was always chubby. So through high school, I was like, maybe 140, which is about a size 12 for me. And I'm 5'6". But it wasn't until I got into college that I started really to get heavier and heavier. My junior year in college, I was stupid enough to get pregnant. And so I had a baby, and then I finished my senior year with the baby in tow. I actually pulled a whole lot of courses on my junior year when I was pregnant. And I only had to take two classes after that in 1984. So that's when I graduated college. But at any rate, I wanted to mention that I did have a baby. So I was a single mom. And when my son was about 5 years old, I met a man and we got married. A very nice man named Donald, and he adopted my son. He was a very kind. He still is. He's a kind man, and he adopted my son. And then we got married when I was 25 years old, and I tried to have a baby after that. I really wanted to have a baby, another baby, so to make the family complete. So however, I found myself having a hard time, number one, getting pregnant. And I didn't have any problem before when I was a junior in college, but that's another story within itself. Hang on a second, just get rid of one of these guys. Sorry, my cats are going to bug me. So anyway, when I was after that, I tried having a baby and I kept miscarrying. So after we started seeing fertility specialists, I couldn't get pregnant unless I was on medication, which was Clomid. I think I called it Clomid at the time. And I got pregnant very easily once I was on the medication. However, I couldn't carry. I would miscarry between the first and second trimester, which is very common. And I started, after the second miscarriage, they started testing the fetus to see what the problem was. And it was definitely an autoimmune issue. So that was my very first autoimmune issue. I consider the ruptured appendix an autoimmune issue too, because I had a lot of digestive issues leading up to that. But anyway, and that was before I got married. So anyway, um, I had this autoimmune disorder, and I saw a fertility specialist, got pregnant on Clomid, couldn't carry, and they would give me progesterone and estrogen, or not progesterone, not estrogen, to raise my HCG levels. But my body just would not. My immune system was killing my baby over and over again. So when they did the last three miscarriage tests, they tested the sex, and it was female. So I had one fertility specialist tell me, well, maybe if you get pregnant with the boy, your immune system would recognize it as another sex and won't miscarry the baby. So I kind of had that in the back of my head. but no matter how much we tried after that, I just couldn't get pregnant. So after 5 miscarriages, Dawn said to me, "You know what? I'm happy with David. He was almost at this point graduating high school. He adopted him when he was 5 years old. So now at this point, so much time had passed that he said, I'm very happy with our son David, and I would just I don't want to see you go through this again." So he was very kind about that, and I said, okay. So then we decided, okay, we're 37, our son's graduating high school, let's get in shape and go traveling. And I had seen a friend of mine who was on the Atkins diet. I hadn't seen her for about 6 or 8 months. And she had dumped a lot of weight, and she looked fantastic. And she's like, "Oh, I'm on the Atkins diet." And she told me all about it. She's like, "You can have this steak and cheese sub, just take the steak and cheese out of the bread. You can have, bacon and eggs." I'm like, "God, this sounds like a fantastic diet." So I went on this Atkins diet when I was 37 years old, and I dropped 50 pounds. Now all through all these miscarriages, my weight was creeping up, creeping up, creeping up. So I went from 130, 140, 150, 160. My heaviest point, I was 185. Um, so that's when I decided to lose this weight, when I was 185 after the fifth miscarriage. So I lost 50 pounds, and then my cycle started regulating, which would never happened in my entire life. My menstrual cycles never regulated. So I said, okay, this is weird. But the doctor did tell me that it could be regulated because when you lose weight, estrogen and progesterone get redistributed in the bloodstream, so it could actually regulate you. But at that point, I was only eating meat. Even though I was on Atkins, I was doing so well losing the weight that I completely cut out all sugar. All sugar. I was on complete carnivore. I didn't say to myself, I'm on a carnivore diet. I just said to myself, I'm going zero carbs. And I lost 50 pounds within probably 6 months. I just didn't even think it was humanly possible for me to lose that much weight in that short of time. So what happened was, when I was 38, I got pregnant on my own for the first time in since forever. Since I was in my 20s for the second time successfully. That is, I got pregnant, and I had made myself so immune to miscarriages that I said to myself, I kind of disconnected myself from the pregnancy and said, "Oh well, I know I'm just going to miscarry in 6 weeks." And so I called the OBGYN. We were on first name basis at that point. And she said, okay, come in and maybe you'll have a good pregnancy. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And when I went into the office 6 weeks later, she actually said, this is a good pregnancy. You have very high HCG levels. We're picking up a heartbeat, and you are going to have a baby. And then it kind of sunk in. I was like, oh, darn. They didn't know how I felt about that. I'm like, here I am, 38 now. We decided not to have a baby. And I just started a new career. This is another thing I wanted to mention. When I went on this Atkins diet, I had unbelievable clarity. And I left the job that I had because I just had so much ambition. And I had been stuck in this job that I hated. And so I went out and I applied for other jobs, and I was much more self-confident. So anyway, getting back to the pregnancy. So I carried my son. This is my second son, Andrew. I carried him without a hitch, and the doctors would tell me, you can't stay on this Atkins diet. It's dangerous for the baby. You need folic acid, and they got me all wigged out. But I didn't want to come off the diet because I was kind of superstitious that if I came off the diet, my HCG levels would drop. Like if I started, and I didn't realize it was from not eating junk. That really, basically, I was on standard American diet. I ate junk my whole life. Subs, pizza, McDonald's, Burger King. I mean, that's how we grew up. That's how my children grew up, and so anyway, I carried him with no problem, and he was almost 10 pounds at birth. I only gained 32 pounds when I was pregnant with him. And I still followed that Atkins diet. I was on carnivore. I did eat a few veggies, because they got me a little wigged out about the folic acid. So I had like broccoli, which gave me cramps. And I remember the broccoli giving me cramps. So, but that was it. I really attributed that to, and I didn't even think of it until I went carnivore again, because now through my 40s, now here I am, I'm tired, and I have this 2-year-old, I'm in my 40s, and he was really tough. He was a tough kid. He was very headstrong, stubborn. He was really much harder than my first one. But he's a fine young man now. He's 23 years old. But anyway, I so through my 40s, I started getting other autoimmune disorders. I came off the diet because I thought it was bad for my heart, because several doctors told me you can't stay on this Atkins diet. And sure, I missed my sugar. I've been addicted to sugar since I've been a baby, and I love my sugar. So any excuse to go back on it. But then that weight slowly crept up again until I got back up to, 168, 170 pounds. And then I had an outbreak of psoriasis. So the psoriasis came out for the first time when I was taking my son to college. I'll never forget it because I remember my elbows. I'm like, why are my elbows so flaky? I was looking at my elbows saying, why are they so flaky? So that was my first bout of psoriasis. My son Dave was 18, so that was 83. It was around 2005. So, but the psoriasis got progressively worse. It eventually it covered my, in the elbows it was okay. Then it went on my knees. Then it was from my knees to my ankles. It just started growing, and then I would compulsively scratch it, and then it was starting to freak me out. And then I cleared a jacuzzi. I remember that. My husband and I went to Disney World. We took Andrew to Disney World, and we were in a public jacuzzi, and I just had it on one leg. And I went into the jacuzzi, and 8 people immediately exited as soon as I came in. And my husband was so upset. He was way more upset than I was, because I was excited that we had the whole jacuzzi to ourselves. But my husband was so upset for me. He was just outraged for me. He's like, I'm really sorry, because he knew I was self-conscious about the psoriasis. But I said to him, you know what? If I saw somebody get in with that leg, maybe I would have gotten out too if I didn't know what it was. So I can't blame people. People, they skeeve over everything. But anyway, so the psoriasis got really bad in my 40s, and I tried different things. I tried, going in the sun, and then I went to a dermatologist, and they wanted me to come in for light treatments. And they're like, oh, we can clear you up in 2 seconds. And I remember asking her, does my diet have anything to do with my psoriasis? And I never made the food connection with the psoriasis. And she said, no, it doesn't. She's like, well, you shouldn't eat junk food. You should eat whole foods. But no. And I'm like, okay. She's like, so she wanted me to come in 3 or 4 days a week for light treatments, for like 1-minute light treatments, which would cost me $100 a week to do this, because I had to pay 4 co-payments. So every time I go in there, I'd have to pay a $25 co-payment. And I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford that. So I ended up getting a psoriasis light. The psoriasis was covered more than 30% of my body. It got to that point. And I refused medication because I was always leery of Big Pharma. Ever since my appendix ruptured, I was leery of Big Pharma. The psoriasis got so bad, I actually let it get bad. I let it to get 130% because my insurance paid for me to get a psoriasis light. So I got one of those big giant tannin beds that took up half of my living room. And I would go, and it was a pain too, because it would fold and you have to open it, and you'd have to do like 1-minute increments on each side. And I had to get all my animals out of the room because it could blind them if they come into the room and look at the lights. And it was just, and it used so much electricity. You can actually hear them going, it's like, so it wasn't it's just such a big, ugly piece of furniture too. I still have it, and I have no idea how to get rid of it. But anyway, it was like a $6,000 light, but I got it for not free. I had to pay a copay of $600, but my insurance covered the rest. But at any rate, the psoriasis I could handle. It was when the arthritis started kicking in that things got really bad. So I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis when I got into my 50s. Now, at this point, I started feeling joint pain in my 40s with the psoriasis. Where the psoriasis was is where I had the joint pain. So the psoriasis, if it was around my ankles, the joint pain would be on my ankles. I had 2 hand surgeries for carpal tunnel because I had inflammation constantly in the hands. And so I couldn't even type anymore at work. Excuse me. So I had 2 hand surgeries, which I probably wouldn't have to have if I discovered the carnivore earlier. And so anyway, I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis because my hands were so swollen all the time when I was in my 50s. It was in my early 50s, I would have to say. I'm almost 62 now. But they were just always swollen, and the arthritis was so bad I would have to put my hands under warm water in the morning because they were so stiff. And my uncle, he had severe rheumatoid arthritis. He told me the trick is just to keep them moving, keep them moving, keep them moving. Well, that hurt. And I didn't realize how bad it was getting. It's so funny, but you don't realize how much pain you're in until the pain is gone. I just never, and I know, Dave, you talk about walking with the gait. I have flat feet and I have weak ankles, and I've always had a limp too on my left leg. That limp's gone away too since I've been carnivore. But I've always had, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me get into my 50s. So I started getting really bad arthritis. Um, Getting out of the car, I'd be holding onto the roof, and it would. I made robot sounds. I'd go because it seemed to be less painful if I make robot sounds. And my son used to say, "Mom, why are you making those sounds?" And I'm like, "It just seems like if I make robot sounds, it's not as painful." But I went to a rheumatologist because the pain did get, the swelling in the ankles, and I couldn't walk, and it was affecting my quality of life. So I did break down and go to see a rheumatologist, and he was a very nice guy, and he wanted to give me, he diagnosed me with with psoriatic arthritis because of the psoriasis, because my fingernails were pitted. They just do it by symptom. So he said, okay, you have psoriatic arthritis. I said, okay, how do they treat it? He says, well, I'd like to give you a prescription for methotrexate. And I didn't know what methotrexate was. So he's like, well, it's basically going to, lower the T cells in your blood. And I'm like, oh, well, he says, your T cells are too high. Your T cells are high. That's what's causing the psoriasis. That's what's causing the psoriatic arthritis. And I said, well, does diet have anything to do with it? So, just for laughs, does diet? And he says, he's like, well, it could. He says, I think it does. He says to me, and he says, but if the healthier you eat, the better, I imagine. But he really had kind of general information that everybody knows. When you go to the doctors, they always like they follow a Mediterranean diet. That's what they always tell us. I don't know what a Mediterranean diet is. Follow a Mediterranean diet. Follow a Mediterranean diet. It's always on my sheet of paper. So anyway, I just think of my doctor saying that, follow the Mediterranean diet. uh, so anyway, this doctor was a nice guy, and I asked him about the medication. I said, okay, I'll take the prescription, but I'm going to go home and research it. And he looked at me and he said, you always research your medication? And I'm like, yes. And he said, do you take any medication? I said, no. He says, I don't think you're going to take this once you research it. That's what he said to me. The doctor said, you're not going to take it if you research it. So I did research it, and I'm like, no, not taking it. Mm-mm. So, but the thing is, I had to have the methotrexate first before they can give me something else that they have for psoriasis. Another thing that kills your T cells. So anyway, after that, I just went home and I researched. I just kept researching. I found on the psoriasis website a small little article, not an article, but it was a blog. And somebody from the UK had written down on the blog that they gave up gluten and their psoriasis went away. And so that's the first time I actually made the connection. I was in my 50s, probably 10 years ago. So I'm like, okay, so it is what I'm eating. I'm not going to eat gluten anymore. So I stopped eating gluten, and half of the psoriasis went away when I stopped eating gluten within 3 weeks. It takes about 3 weeks. So all the psoriasis on my arms, I was covered from here to my elbows. It just stayed on my elbows. And then I was here to my wrist, and it was gone. It was off my hands. It was off my legs. And it was just this stubborn 6-inch patch on my right leg, and on my knees it stayed. But it was, 20, I would say 50% of it was gone. So it was definitely my diet. I was so excited, and I started keeping a journal of what I ate, and it was such a struggle. I was writing down what I ate, what I reacted to. So I knew right away that I reacted to nightshade vegetables. So I'm like, okay, so tomatoes, peppers, those things. I know that my body started itching after I ate those things. So I stopped eating tomatoes and peppers. And so it's been kind of a 10-year journey of elimination. And then I completely decided that I'm not going to eat anything. I saw a special out of the University of California from some doctor called The Bitter Truth about sugar. And he was talking about high fructose corn syrup. So I'd already cut out gluten. And then I saw this special, and it scared the crap out of me about high fructose corn syrup and how it's not even allowed in foreign countries, and it's a disaster, and all these children are obese because of it. And I decided I'm not going to buy anything with high fructose corn syrup. So that pretty much cut out half of my food that I ate because I was reading labels now, and I was reading labels and no gluten, no high fructose corn syrup, and then I looked up other bad ingredients, and then it was just like this rabbit hole that I was going down, and I said it's just something I can do that would just make this faster because the diary wasn't working. I'd go I can't have nitro vegetables, I can't have gluten, but then I have something else, maybe alcohol, and then I'd stop being itchy again, or something like corn, and I'd start getting itchy, just silly things. So I decided I was going to just only buy whole foods. Only when I go into the grocery store, I'm only going to go around the perimeter of the store. I'm not going to have any grains. I'm going to cut out grain, but I will. I did have substitutes for gluten, so I would have like a gluten-free pizza, which would kill me because the tomatoes in the pizza. But I had cut it out. I had cut the gluten was just a big thing. So, but I never got rid of that psoriasis, and I never got rid of the arthritis. The psoriatic arthritis calmed down, but I still had stiffness, ache, and I was just kind of working it into my daily life. I'm always going to be in pain. I guess it's part of getting old. I'm almost 60, blah blah blah, and I didn't know I could feel this good. So getting up to that point, I had Googled, like I said, like around 2022. I'm sorry, around 2020. So I was only eating whole foods for the past, and no, I've been gluten free for about 8 years. So I haven't had any gluten or nitrate vegetables except for pizza tomato on the pizza. But um, like I said, I still had the arthritis. So I thought if I just made sugar from scratch, oh, I'll make pies from scratch. I'll buy pies at bakeries. I won't buy Hostess. I won't buy processed food. But so I'd go to the bakery and buy the same crap, except instead of high fructose corn syrup, it has sugar. So, but I've always been addicted to sugar. I got to tell you this. I love sugar. When I was little, I used to drive my parents crazy. I have to say, my mother they had such a hard time restricting my sugar, and they would give me apples and things like this, and I would get the sugar out of the cabinet, the Domino sugar, and then pour a bowl of it and dip my apple into it, and every bite I have, I dip the sugar in. By the time I was 5 years old, I had 3 silver caps on my back teeth because all my teeth had rotted from the sugar. Yeah, I was a sugar addict. I would get up in the middle of the night. I would have to have sugar. I was very addicted to sugar, 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 sugar. And my parents controlled it. But once I had my own control in my 20s, 30s, 40s, I was just going to eat everything, bakery food. I love sugar and I miss it, but I don't crave it anymore. So anyway, I went on so I was already kind of semi-disciplined, but I decided to go full carnivore because I was sick of the psoriasis and the arthritis. And I actually Googled, I Googled allergic to everything, just like Michaela. And that's when her TED talk came up. And then she talked about being carnivore. And she's talking about all this medication she's on. And they offered her methotrexate, and she was on SSRIs. And I was like, oh my God. I've always refused medication. I've been offered medication over and over again. And I've always never, I don't want to be in my mother, totally completely addicted to all her medication. Her whole life is built around the medication. So here's my mom's medication, and here's her whole life, and it's just that's it. And it's all. And she lives in an elderly community, and all they care about and talk about is their medications. And I'd rather be dead. And I said this to my mother. I would rather be dead than have 15 medications that I obsess over every day. Well, I'm happy it keeps my mom alive. So I don't. But that's all. I just don't want that. So anyway, I've always refused medication. I always try doing anything, holistically or, naturally. So I saw her TED talk really made a big impact on me. And then I dove right into carnivore the next day after I saw that video. And I had no problem at all diving right into the carnivore. So I was eating, bacon and eggs in the morning, and I'd go to McDonald's at lunch and I have to get 2 double cheeseburgers and eat that and take it off the bread, just like when I was on Atkins. And I started doing that. And all of the within just all meat, just meat. I decided meat, cheese. So I do dairy. So not milk because I'm not a milk drinker, but meat, cheese, and eggs were going to be all of my basic foods, and that's how I lived. So I had lamb and beef. I'm not a big fish eater, but I will eat fish, or I'll eat chicken if in a pickle if I'm like at a wedding and that's all you have is chicken, so I'll eat the chicken. But I'm not since I've been on the carnivore diet, I've not been a big fan of chicken for some reason. Uh, but anyway, so I started it in March of 2022. I went carnivore. So it's been just about a year and a half. And I immediately, and at the time I was about 158. I immediately dropped right down to 125 pounds. I mean, it just fell off me again. Just like it just within 3 months, I went down to 125 pounds, and I just felt great. I felt fantastic. I mean, of course, I didn't go through the withdrawals as badly as other people because like I said, I was pretty much eating a lot of whole foods, all less grains, no gluten. So, but I still ate a lot of sugar, and I did go through sugar withdrawals. I did have that, that famous diarrhea. So I did have that for a few weeks. You can't trust your gas. So that was a little unnerving, but it passed. And for the first time in my life, I no longer have cramps, no longer have diarrhea. I no longer have any of those digestive problems. I'm not constipated. I'm regular. I can predict when and what time because I eat at the same time all the time. I'm a very routine person, so I usually eat at the same time. So I was eating only once a day until I dropped down to 122 pounds. And my doctor said to me, I had he's like, oh, you look great. You dropped a lot of weight. You don't have to lose any more now. He said, you really shouldn't get below 120 because at this point you'll be underweight. And I'm like, well, no, I don't intend on that. The weight loss was a bonus. The arthritis being gone was the big plus. I didn't even do it for weight loss. I did it to get rid of the arthritis, the psoriasis. I actually just did it to get rid of the psoriasis. I thought I'd have to live with the arthritis. But the bonus was the arthritis because I have no pain at all. I had lower back pain, ankle pain, wrist pain, finger pain. I mean, I had two surgery. I had a foot surgery. I mean, I've had surgeries that I didn't have to have. And those are all gone. All that pain is gone. But I've always had this like 6 inches of psoriasis on my right lower leg. It's about this big. And it would never go away. So about 2 months ago, I said to myself, I'm going to try just giving up the cheese and see if that last little stubborn 6 inch patch of psoriasis that's been with me since, I've been, since I've been 45 years old. So anyway, that psoriasis patch went away when I stopped eating cheese. It completely went away. For the first time in my life, I was 100% psoriasis free. And it took 3 weeks for it to completely clear. And I was very, very excited. However, I dropped to 116 pounds after I gave up the cheese. It was my only thing I gave up. I just gave up 4 pieces of cheese a day. I had it on my hamburger and I have it on like my egg, 2 pieces on my eggs and 2 pieces on my hamburger. And that was the only thing I gave up. And I dropped down to 116 from 122. So now, and I'll tell you, I didn't feel good at that weight. I'm like, no, I have to eat more. I have to eat more. I need something to substitute the cheese, something that's high enough in calories, but low enough in sugar. Because I have discovered from experimentation that I can eat up to 46 carbohydrates a day without the arthritis coming back. Once I passed that 46 carbohydrates, and it's so funny, I was testing myself every day. I would eat because I was on complete carnivore. And then I gave up the cheese. And then I'm trying to figure out what I can eat that won't break the psoriasis back out without the cheese. And I got so discouraged because I was trying different things like pistachios. And pistachios caused me to have these little bubbles in my eyes. And it's because I was eating a lot of them to maintain my weight. And it was fun. I was dumping oxalates. What do they call them? Oxidates or oxalates? I don't know. Sally Norton. I'm like, what's this bubble in my eye? And I Googled it, and Sally Norton's name came up, and then I learned all about how pistachios are not really good for you. So I cut the pistachios out to get rid of the bubble in my eye, and now. So I said, okay, maybe I'll try a little chocolate. So then I tried some chocolate, but I forgot chocolate has milk and the psoriasis started coming back. So I'm still kind of struggling with what I can eat. So now this week I'm trying something new. I'm eating 3 times a day instead of just once a day or twice a day. I'm making myself eat 3 times a day. So, like today, for example, I had 2 eggs and 4 pieces of bacon for breakfast. And then I had probably a half a pound of burger for lunch and with some pickles. I do have pickles once in a while. And then for supper, I had some a chuck roast that I had made yesterday. So, since I've been doing this for the past 4 days, I'm waking up and my stomach is rumbling. It wasn't rumbling before. So now my body's getting used to me eating in the morning again. So I this has actually helped me. I've actually put on back up to like 119 pounds since I started eating 3 meals a day. So it is helping me because my family's getting a little wigged out. And I got an email, coincidentally, I got an email from a friend of mine. I hadn't seen her in a while, and she sent me this email and she said to me, I think you're anorexic. She actually said to me, you're anorexic. You need to cut this out, and you need to cut this out now. And blah, and meat causes cancer, and there's this like this whole diatribe, and I'm like, so. And this is from a girl whose body is so inflamed. I mean, last time I saw her, her ankles were swollen, and her face was swollen, and she was drinking Coca-Cola, and I was like, you're full of inflammation. But I never said that to her. So until she sent me that email, then I told her, you know what? I feel fantastic. I wrote her, I said, I feel fantastic. My blood work is fantastic. My doctor's very happy. The cholesterol's a little high, but he knows as well as I do. Cholesterol doesn't cause heart attacks. My A1C was so low. It was just in my, what was it? My triglycerides were like 4.1. It was, my numbers were great. The cholesterol was a little slightly high, like overall cholesterol. I don't know how to really read it, but it was just slightly high, maybe like 10 points over the norm. But yeah, I'm in good shape. But anyway, so that's the only thing I'm struggling with right now is actually weight loss. Like I don't know at what point I was maintaining 122 pounds for a long time until I gave up the cheese, and I tried eating the cheese again. This is weird. I tried eating the cheese again just to I said, okay, I can live with that little patch of psoriasis, but it didn't work out that way. After 3 weeks of being off the cheese, the psoriasis was gone. Once I started eating the cheese, the psoriasis came back tenfold. It came back on my knees, on my hands, on my elbows. I mean, it was like my body's like, no. Like 3 weeks off, you're not going back on. So after a week back on the cheese, I had a full outbreak of psoriasis on my legs, my knees, my elbows, and my hands. And now, as you can see, that's gone off my hands. So I've been off cheese now for 7 days. I think it's been 5 or 7 days. I've been off cheese again, and my hands are completely clear. And last week they were broken out. So
nice.
Yeah. So
so sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
No, that's it. That's my story. I'm still.
I'm just interested in your feeling.
Yeah.
You were on Atkins. You were basically on the right track.
Yeah.
And then you were convinced to stop doing it for your health's sake.
Correct. Yes.
And then once you start the same thing again, everything clears up. I mean, how does that make you feel?
Like an idiot because I didn't even make the connection. I didn't even make the connection until I went back on this carnivore diet. I said, oh my God. And I looked at my son and I said, I had you, because my son gives me grief over this diet. He's like, Ma, I don't know how you can eat meat all day. And I'm like, I had you because of this diet. I'm like, so, you can't knock it. And my other son, who's older now, he's 40. He's always had a weight problem. He had bypass surgery. He's 40. My other son, the one I had when I was in college, he had bypass surgery, and they literally took out a pound of bad bacteria out of his stomach, a pound of bad bacteria. But I raised him on those bad habits, just like, I was raised on those bad habits. Yeah, I just never made the connection. It's so weird how it only takes one thing to make everything connected. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I was fertile. I mean, and it's so weird. After I had my son too, I had 2 more pregnancies when I was 41 and 42. And I miscarried both of them. I got pregnant on my own, miscarried both, because I was eating crap again. Not that I wanted another baby at 41 and 42. So, God took care of that. But he's really a miracle, and I really attributed it to the carnivore diet. I Because all of my autoimmune disorders, I had an autoimmune disorder. It, because of the crap I was eating. It's really crap, especially in the United States. I mean, my younger sister, she had her first heart attack at 38 years old, because when my dad left the house, like I said, my mom never cooked. She was the breadwinner. My dad always did the cooking, and he was a great cook, and we always had homemade meals. But when my mom, when he left, my mom she was always working, so we always ordered fast food. Well, we cooked box food or TV dinners. And that's how we grew up. But my younger sister got the brunt of it because she was only 3 or 4 years old when this happened. We were 11 years apart. So she grew up on Burger King, McDonald's, Burger King, McDonald's, Burger. It was like every single day. And then she got to the point where that's what she would only eat is Burger King and McDonald's. And that's it. She wouldn't eat anything else. And until she was in her 30s, and she stopped eating Burger King, McDonald's when she had quadruple bypass surgery at 38 years old. And she's struggled with her heart since then. Now she she's also been heavy, and she's had problems. But a lot uh, a lot of my family, my brother got a new heart. I mean, he died suddenly last year, but he had a heart attack too, and we grew up on those bad habits. So I'm not blaming my parents, but yeah, because my children too. I mean, like I said, my son had bypass surgery. He and his wife, not they did a sleeve on both of them. I think it was the sleeve. It's less invasive. But it's the standard American diet, and people think I'm crazy. Like people I work with, my boss, well, my boss's boss, as I call him, but his name's Paul, and I cook bacon in the microwave every day at work, and I get a lot of grief. I mean, it stinks up the entire bill. I work at Boston College, and it stinks up the entire office. And my boss came out of his office and he said, "Can I microwave something before you microwave that bacon?" I'm like, "Oh, sure." He's like, and then he looks at me and he's like, "Is that what you're eating?" I go, "No, I have 3 eggs for myself in the office." And he's like, he looks at me and goes, "Why don't you eat a vegetable?" I'm like, "Because I'm a carnivore." So, but even my family thinks I'm crazy. And I'm like, "What? Crazy for feeling fantastic?" I'm crazy because I feel fantastic. My sister's on Weight Watchers and she's counting points, and I'm like, eh. She's like, "I can't. I'm not giving up my bread. I'm not giving up the things I love. You can give up the things you love, but I'm not giving up the things I love. I'm going to learn how to control the things I love." This is what my sister said to me. I'm like, "Okay, that's fine, but I can't control myself. I'm a sugaraholic. If I eat sugar, I'm not going to stop. I'm like I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a sugaraholic." So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And when I got pregnant, this is funny, Dave. When I got pregnant my first time, I did a semester at Trinity College in Oxford, and went back in the day when I was a sophomore. And when I went to England, I lost weight by default because the food there was so bad. I mean, here I am eating a standard American diet, and then I go to England and like they're serving me fish that are looking at me, and with the eye and the tail attached, and everybody ate fish and chips, and I couldn't get any pizza. Or they even had lamb burgers at McDonald's because at the time there was mad cow disease. But so when I was in England, I dropped almost 20 pounds because I was hungry. I would like complain. I complained to all my fellow Americans, "I'm starving. There's nothing here." So, but anyway, I was eating basically just fruit and, they had good bread. They had good bread, scones. They had good scones.
Yeah.
But and I heard that they're much better than they were in 1982. But I attribute that weight loss to me being fertile when I got pregnant, because right when I lost all that weight, I came back, and I was pregnant because I was a dummy. But I was thinking back, when you and I scheduled this meeting, I was thinking back of my whole life in retrospect, and how things affected it. And my weight has always affected my fertility. And I don't know if it's the weight or is the progesterone and estrogen redistributing in your body, making you fertile? But my HCG levels were not rising until I did carnivore diet. And then they said, and it raises testosterone levels, I heard. So my son, my older one who's 40, he has low testosterone levels. I said to him, just go on a carnivore diet. Go on a carnivore diet. You don't have to take any of those medicines. It's just, it will, everything will go away. People think I'm crazy, but the callus at the bottom of my foot went away. I went to a podiatrist every 6 weeks to get a callus spot caught. It used to grow. You know what a callus is, right? At the bottom of my foot, right on the ball of my foot, right here. And every week, every like 6 weeks, I had to go get cut off. When I went carnivore, I have never had the callus back. It never came back. So right away, people are like, oh, it's because your weight loss. No, it was before I lost the weight. The callus just never grew back. The brown spots on my hands disappeared. I had brown dots all over my hands. They're gone. I had a big dark brown spot right here, and it's almost gone. You can still see it, but it's so weird looking at myself. But it's right here, and it's half of it's gone, and I'm hoping the rest of it will go away. Oh, another thing too is my hair has been growing like crazy. You had mentioned that the hair grow, but I've been on it for a year and a half. My hair is crazy. I like it's like I'm almost 62, and it's like a 12-year-old girl's hair. It's like it's thick. And I've even had, this is all new hair too, right around here. So I never even realized I had lost hair there, but apparently it did. Yeah.
This is awesome. So many improvements and so quickly.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it sounds like you the people around you are not convinced. Like, is there anyone that's gone, this looks great, I'm going to do it too?
Well, yeah. Some coworkers have asked me a lot of questions about it. I think there's one girl in an office, or because I work in the finance office and in the financial area, and she works for HR, and she's the heavy set girl, really nice girl, and she's thinking about doing it. She asks me questions. She comes to my office all the time, asks me questions about the diet, and I think because she has psoriasis and she has seen my psoriasis come and go. And when it finally went, I showed her. I'm like, look, it's gone. And I think she's getting ready, but she's like, do I have to give up this? There's like they don't get the scope of it. Like, do I have to give up this, and this? And I'm like, yes. Do I have to give up spinach and this and broccoli? I'm like, yes. Like you have to give it all up. If you don't want to give up vegetables, then just go keto. But try keto first, because I was basically keto even before I went carnivore, because I had cut out all grains, but I didn't really count anything. But do you know how anybody, you've interviewed a lot of people. Has anyone talked about how they maintain their weight, or does it get to a certain point? What I'm afraid of is if I don't want to get too low, and I keep getting low until I emaciate myself. I don't. That's the only thing I kind of have for the carnivore community.
So, I mean, from the people I've spoken to,
Yeah.
and this would include my experience as well, is you kind of get to you will keep kind of losing, but your body's going to eventually get to some homeostatic level where it's going to be, it goes, okay, well, this is the right weight.
Right. Yeah. That's how I
And
felt.
then you kind of go up and down from there. But, what your body sees as the appropriate weight might end up being, 118 pounds or something like that. It might not be 122 pounds or something.
Yeah, that's true too. My doctor told me that 120 is a good weight for me, but he told me if I go under 118, I'm going to be considered underweight, which is not good because, even if you get sick with the cold, he said you might lose another pound or two, and you want to
Mhm.
you want to be at the proper weight. You don't want to be too underweight. So, but
Mm.
yeah, but I maintained 122 pounds until I gave up those 4 slices of cheese. I never realized how heavy they are. Because I didn't I can't believe I lost that weight just from cheese.
So my experience with cheese was similar, but the weight loss was so rapid that I imagine cutting out the cheese got rid of some water that my body was holding on to for some inflammation, low level inflammation I had, or something like that.
Yeah, that might be it
So,
as well.
mm.
Yeah.
So technically, I was already at the the weight I was after I got rid of the cheese. It was just my body was retaining water.
Yeah. Oh, another
Yeah.
benefit I do want to mention though is uh, the attention. Like I've always had ADHD. I've been very ADHD. I have had unbelievable mental clarity. It's just like, and I've always struggled with mental clarity. I've always struggled with brain fog, always, since I've been like, because I'm a sugar addict. So I struggled through college, and I struggled, just through my job, just focusing. And I had such a great year at work, and I accomplished so much being on this carnivore diet that, the mental clarity is unbelievable. Like I have all these new ideas, and it's just I love the way I think. I love the way I feel, and I love the way I think. So it's really been very successful for me. I do get grief though from all the bacon. I'm thinking about getting my own microwave for my own office, so I don't have to cook it in the main area. It's like,
Um, the, that's awesome that the clarity and the attention is so much better. So
yeah.
I've got one question about what you're consuming. Are you drinking coffee as well? Do you drink coffee or tea or anything like that?
Once in a while, I have a cup of tea. But now that I've cut out dairy, I'm not going to have any more tea because I have to have tea with milk. I don't like it with cream. I don't like it with butter. I have to have tea with milk or honey, and I'm not having honey either. So, but if there's nothing else to eat and I'm at an event, I will have a cup of tea. I'll try to drink it without the milk. Sometimes I get nauseous when I drink tea on an empty stomach without milk for some reason. But I haven't tested it since I've been on carnivore, though. I should try it. But I've never coffee has always given me heartburn, so I have never drank. I never drank it. I used to drink it when I did a graveyard shift in my 20s. I used to drink coffee, but I used to get constant heartburn from it, so I gave that up. But I do treat myself to alcohol maybe twice a month. I'll have a drink and a half. I can't go over those 46 carbohydrates. I went on a cruise with my sister, and I woke. It's so funny. I went on a cruise, and I said to myself, "I'm going to cheat only with sugar, no gluten, no grains. I'm just going to have a little bit of gluten-free dessert." So I had a couple of gluten-free, like puddings and things like that on the cruise, and then I would drink alcohol, and then I'd have another pudding because I drank alcohol and I didn't care and I wasn't counting my sugar. And at one point, by the fourth day on the cruise, I couldn't walk up the stairs. My knees, the arthritis in my knees was unbelievable. So I immediately went right back on the diet on the day 5 of the cruise. What she's like, why aren't you not having any dessert? And I'm like, because I can't walk. I'm done. I'm done. I'm back on the diet, back on it. So I saw, but I gained 4 pounds during that cruise from all that sugar I had for the first 4 days. So,
It's so interesting to see how rapid the effect is
oh yeah,
of
yeah.
the processed food. Yeah.
Well, after the cheese, after 4 days, I couldn't believe the outburst I had on the outbreak I had on my legs and in my elbows and my knees on my psoriasis. It hadn't been that bad in a year. So it's like when I gave up the cheese, I only had 6 inches of psoriasis, and then when I started eating the cheese again, my body was like, "No, we're gonna break you out everywhere just to give you a reminder that you're not gonna eat that." So that's exactly what happened. It was a reminder. It was like a slap in the face. So,
Yeah.
let me tell you, I'm bummed out about that cheese. I love cheese, and it was really very hard for me to give up. And I was just using it as an excuse to get it back. And I was even willing to have that 6 inches of psoriasis for it, but I'm not willing to get that psoriasis all over my body. So the cheese is gone, sadly. But the pistachios are gone. I mean, just all these things that I'm so excited. Chocolate's gone.
But the upside is life is much more livable though, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm always like thinking of ideas to like leave my job and work on my own, and I'm like, oh, what am I doing? And then I told them at work I'm going to retire next year. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to retire next year. I'm not waiting near ready to retire. I'm not even 62. And, but I want to retire because I want to do something else. But it's not realistic. It's not financially realistic.
Mm.
But
So just regarding the your outlook on things,
yeah.
now that you're doing carnivore, do you feel like your outlook about the future has changed as far as like
Yeah.
you're more excited about making plans about the future now, or you're more optimistic about the future?
That's very true. I feel like I'm going to live a lot longer. And, and it's so funny. You have to be careful when you're a carnivore because you can do like, even when I watch videos of, vegan versus carnivore, the vegan always looks so terrible, like pale and pasty, and the carnivore always looks so good, and I've discovered myself doing that. Like I'm on a train or something, I'm like, oh my gosh, that person eats too many carbs. That person eats too many carbs. That person has metabolic disease. Like I can diagnose people by looking at their faces now, and you have to be careful not to do that. uh, but yeah, I do have a better outlook. I have absolutely. I'm not afraid now to change careers. Um, so I'm always looking for that. Although I like I said, I work in a college. I like my job. I work with a really nice group of people. So I don't know why I want to rock the boat, but I feel like I just want to do something new. I've been at Boston College for 21 years, so I just want to do something new. But anyway, and I've never felt that before. I've always been a routine person, brain fog. But I was, before I went carnivore, I was addicted to caffeine. You had asked me about coffee. I did probably have about 10 cups of tea a day, or Diet Cola. Tab. I don't know if you ever heard of Tab. I used to be a big Tab drinker. That was my me. As a matter of fact, when I stopped drinking it, they stopped making it. That's exactly, they stopped like 3 weeks later after I stopped drinking it. I was probably the last one in the world left. But I don't like aspartame, and that's another poison that they put in our foods here. So Tab was the only thing left with saccharin, and now I drink Zevia. I drink Zevia. I had the Zevia. It has stevia in water. It's carbonated water with stevia, and I don't react to it. I thought before I gave up the cheese, I actually gave up the Zevia and thinking it could be for the psoriasis, and I was giving up my favorite things last. So the Zevia went first, and that didn't help. So I'm like, okay, it's not the Zevia. And then and then I did the cheese. So the cheese was last. But yeah, so that's it. Yeah, my outlook is very good. I don't anticipate being on medications. Um, yeah, I look forward to it. I have two grandchildren now too, so I mean, I I have so much more energy taking care of them. So they usually come over to my house every Saturday and Sunday, and my older grandson, he's autistic, so he's tough. He's almost 8, and I have so much more energy with him now. And but I love my grandchildren. Every weekend, they come over and spend some time with me. I mean, and they have, again, the bad eating habits too. And I try to give them meat. I got the little one. He's 6. He won't eat any meat at all. I mean, this kid won't eat any protein. I'm really concerned about him. He just wants bread. He just wants, toast, waffles. He won't eat any meat at all. No red meat. I've never seen him. He's 6 years old. He only eats chicken, which is better than nothing. And he will eat a hot dog, which is better than nothing, but he won't eat any other meat. So I do get concerned. But the other guy, the autistic one, Derek, he eats a lot of meat. He likes meat. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, that's my outlook. But
Nice.
yeah.
Well, Cecilia, do you have any social media, any YouTube or Instagram if people want to get in touch with you?
No. I actually don't. I mean, I had a canary channel on YouTube, which I haven't seen in 10 years. But if anyone gets in touch with me, they can email me at ceciliamcclay at hotmail.com if anyone wants to get in touch with me.
So, Cecilia, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your journey. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for having me. I like telling my story. Nobody, my family's sick of listening to me anyway. Nobody wants to listen to me.
Cheers.